Let's talk.
Giles Brown.
Now, I don't always say this, but I'm actually right about this because I have been looking forward to doing this interview for a very long time indeed. Because my next guest is the rather wonderful Nicola Wilding. And she's written a book called These Wild English: A Family, a Class, a Country on Fire. Delighted to say that I'm joined live on the line, hopefully from not a country on fire, but Nicola Wilding. Good afternoon to you. Good morning to you, probably in the UK.
Hello, Giles. Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. Now, this book really sort of like piqued my interest, to put it mildly. For those who don't understand me, no, for those who don't know, just explain a little bit about yourself and why you had the chispa, the spark to write this particular book.
Okay, so I'm a TV producer, and I come from a northern working class family. And back in 2013, my mum went on her first EDL march. And she took herself over London Bridge singing "I'm England Till I Die." Around about the same time, my little brother ended up in prison for armed robbery. And I was, making a documentary about the Queen, thinking to myself, how on earth did we get here as a family? How did my mum, who was this, strong, independent woman, brought up 4 kids pretty much alone, spent 40 years as a carer, how did she end up marching alongside what people would term far-right extremists, chanting "No more refugees"?
Yeah.
So I wrote this book to try to answer that question. So These Wild English, it's basically, as I say, a family memoir, and it follows 3 generations of my family from the 50s to the modern day. So from Cumbrian, working farm in Cumbria to care homes in Kent. And it's all about the messy need to belong. There's love, pride, protest, all of that mixed in. It's a bit of a wild ride.
Yeah, well, most families are. That's the problem. To paraphrase Larkin, they mock you up. And I'm using the wrong words, your mum and dad, but your families are even more interesting. I couldn't help but notice that Cyprus gets in there. Is it military as well in there somewhere?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So, Mum married a soldier, so she had a military life for about 10 years. So it's quite transient, and she'd moved around the country, Cyprus, Colchester, Warminster, but also Northern Ireland, and that was quite a tough year for them, I think. Back in 93, I think it was one of the most violent years for the Troubles, aside from the 70s. So it's certainly an eye-opener for Mum. And,
I mean, the thing is, you talk about... Because people always talk about, the broad sweep of history and that sort of stuff, and idealism clashing in the whole, and we all get that with even with the Britain today and the thing of which we in Spain no longer talk about, El Brexit, as we call it, which completely changed Brexit. You see, we call it your face then. You see, it's in Spanish, it's El Brexit. And we talk about, what people was, talk about Cameron, they talk about Farage, Johnson, the whole thing, and these huge political sweeps in the whole Brussels. But actually, politics has an effect on day to day, and that's perhaps more illuminating. So you go from, and your family history goes from that. The effect that politics has, and how sort of certain families become, or all families become sort of skewed, if you like, Nicola.
No, you're right, and it's sometimes it's kind of comforting to think that outside factors sort of affect, say, working class lives. And for a while, I thought, well, that's a bit patronising, but it's true. A lot of big decisions that are made do affect the way that people's lives are led. And it's certainly with my family, and you could think about or talk about the sort of economic decisions of the 80s, which led to massive debt. My family certainly experienced that with the right to buy. Mum bought her council house, ended up having to sell it again because she couldn't afford the payments. And, around about 80s, we have this sort of, the economy changed and become much more grounded in debt payment. And, I think it set us up for 2008 and the financial crisis there.
I mean, do you think, a lot of it goes to be with, and I remember that whole thing with the right to buy, and, friends of mine with miners, and they said, then when they got laid off, they'd sort of all gone out and bought themselves flash new TVs, and then literally sort of 6 months later, they were breaking into each other's houses to get the TVs out of each other. Yeah, because it was, yeah, exactly. Because people have been seduced by this whole thing about, well, people going, oh, greed is good, etc. And so buying your own council house was a thing. And you could argue that those sort of Thatcherist policies broke apart the communities that had held together, and we all became dispossessed, and we all became, so communities that had been there for centuries scattered to the four winds. And that is why those, a lot of the values that we hold, we think of, the good old, the salt of the earth, working class, and all this sort of rubbish. But you know what I'm saying? It was scattered because of what happened economically.
I think you're right. And what you're saying about what Thatcher did with the right to buy is really interesting, because she tapped in a very human need to want to own a piece repurposed emotionally.
English man's home and his castle.
Tied that to bricks and mortar, didn't she? So she repurposed social housing, repurposed it for social mobility, if you like. And all of a sudden, this welfare state or this society which Thatcher never believed in, she basically just sold off the houses.
Talking about sort of mobility, how did you go from Cumbria, where presumably you're born, into the world of, that very, very lovely world, darlings, of TV production or film production? I mean, how does that happen for you?
I guess I've always been a bit curious about life. And I just wanted to get out there and understand a wee bit more about how people work, how people tick, which is how I ended up getting into TV and working in factual TV, because I'm nosy.
Right.
I'm really, really nosy. So I live a really, you could say, middle-class life now.
Yeah.
Working class roots, but I still feel very much still attached to my family. So I don't know, maybe you could say I'm biclassal.
I like that. So how do you, you talk about the thing about your mum going on an EDL, an English Defence League march and, keeping us back from refugees. And I know people who have been on these marches, people of our parents' generation. I always say they look back with rose-tinted binoculars in certain instances, because it's like, it was, this isn't the war that our grandfathers fought for. And it was, okay, fair enough. And I think a lot of it's to do with confusion and disillusionment, and the world has moved too darn quickly, and people are feeling left out, and they're going back to, those blue remembered hills that don't actually exist and never did.
That's a really, really good point, Giles. And I think that's true. And when you see people marching, I think the instinct for a lot of people is to cringe and think, oh, well, this is prejudice, this is bigotry, this is racism. And I think we have to look at it a little differently, because people are disorientated and scared by the change that's happening in society. And we are a multicultural society now, and back when Mum was born, when she was young, that wasn't the case. So I think people are just trying to figure out where they sit in the national picture. So if we're going to live in this multicultural society and get along, we have to bring everybody in. And I think we're not quite doing that properly yet, I don't think.
Yeah, but the thing with that is, and you will know this from doing factual TV, is it's you need to, in the nicest possible way, we need to educate people and point out the benefits, etc., of having a multicultural. And we've always been multicultural. It's one of the things of having an empire, which is a word that people go, oh, empire. But do you know what I'm saying? And that, you could say that's come home to roost, but we've always been multicultural. That's why chicken korma or whatever is the famous, is the English national dish or something like that. Some survey comes up with, and it has always been thus, but it is the politics, and it's the fact that a lot of us have very, very small attention spans because of the thing that we hold in our hands every day, mobile phones, people. And that is the problem. And it's much easier to go, well, it's all the immigrants' fault, than it is to point out the nuances. And if you do, you get shouted down the loud. And you will know this from working in the media that you work in, Nicola.
No, absolutely. You need to have nuance, and you need to, you could say that maybe it's our fault that we're not telling the right stories, or we're not telling them in the right way that makes people feel connected. I don't know whether we can blame ourselves, but that's certainly something that I've been looking at. It's like whether we're telling the right stories to working class people. And if we're not, they're going to voices which are louder and possibly uglier. because they're bringing easy, quick solutions.
Yeah, but life isn't like that, is it? So, how difficult is it for you to sit down then and write this book? Because you're taking a broad sweep, with what's happened to England, and then you're looking at personal history, and some of it, there's prison in there as well, and that is difficult to write about. Trust, of which I know. So, how do you? I'm not saying leave your bleeding heart on the page, because that makes this around thing, but you see what I'm saying here. How do you make it a personal, as well as a look at this, at the state that we are in, on every level?
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting question, because when I started writing this, I didn't think about big picture stuff. All I thought about was, how do I bring agency and nuance and truth back to working class lives, people that are neither deserving or undeserving. But as I was writing it, I started to look at the impact of the bigger picture, global political decisions, economic decisions, and I started to see how they were impacting on the way that my family lived their lives. And it wasn't something that I initially noticed. So it was a journey of discovery for me. And so the skill for me was having to merge the two. So go from the micro, my family, to the big picture stuff. And that was quite difficult to pull together.
When did you decide this had to be written then? And when that's two progs. When did you decide this had to be written? And B, what was your reaction when your mum said, "I'm going on this march"? I mean, do you speak to your mum on quite a regular basis? Was this the thing? And she said, "I'm just off to that there London because something needs to be done," quote unquote.
I'm going to say I was shocked. I was shocked, but I was bemused, because Mum likes an adventure and she's quite feisty. So I actually thought at first, she's just having a little adventure. She'll get over it. She'll go and meet some people, have fun, quite like the notoriety a tiny bit, but, then she'll go home and it'll be fine. But the anger stayed, and it stayed for more marches. And for over 3-4 years, she felt she had to go for marches from Rotherham, Dover. And that's when I started to think, well, actually, I need to try and understand where this is coming from. And what is she angry about? What's she scared about?
Because it is too easy, isn't it, to say, oh, well, they're just racist and the whole thing. And, I've got friends people I know, friends who posted this sort of stuff, and you just go, "Whoa!" They're all coming over here, and they're running off with our daughters, and they are living in our council house, etc., etc. But there's got to be a reason behind this. It'd be too easy to say they're all Tommy Robinson or whatever. They're all, So it is understanding as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people need to feel they belong to a national story, and I don't think we've worked out how, as I said earlier, how we bring everybody together. And I think sometimes in a multicultural society, these identities split off, and we end up sort of competing with each other. Whereas, once upon a time, say back in the 50s, the sense of certainly of working class solidarity was a big thing. And I think that's splintered. And I think what we've seen from that is the emergence of this new identity, which the white working class, which is a label that's not given often very kindly.
And also, and we look at the whole thing, because again, we grew up, our grandparents' generation, my family is Scottish miners before the war, and there's a community there. And, we all know about because, hey, Billy Elliot, everybody goes about the miner strike. But that is, if you're, you can be in the Rhondda, you can be Sheffield, you can be Leeds, whatever, Manchester. There are communities that stay there. But as those heavy industries are broken up, then the communities split up, and you lose that. And you can say the miner strike is if you like, the final hurrah of that community, because you're not going to have people in light industrial parks in the Thames Valley corridor going, we all were in AI together, and we all used to go around eat people's houses. So people are kind of, communities are lost in the way, and we haven't found anything to replace them. And perhaps that sense of gathering around the flag, be it on a march or be it support. I mean, the irony of people going completely bananas about a football team that is made up of a multicultural society, Nicola. I mean, not going to get too deep and meaningful, but you know what we're saying here.
Yeah, absolutely. We need belonging. People just need to belong. It's just such an obvious thing to say, but it's so important. It's not just about, and it's having jobs and money, yes, but it's also feeling that you belong to a bigger picture, whether it's a national story or, a big community. And yeah, people are lost. And I think I think it certainly shows in my book.
How did the family react to when you said, I'm going to write this book, and how do they react to when it's being published? Because, I mean, you might not never get a Christmas again.
So Mum was always very excited by the book. And I've got like a big family, lots of aunts and uncles, and a lot of them chipped in and were really up for sort of telling their story. And my brother was very brave of him to get involved as well. Everybody's still excited. Sadly, Giles, I lost Mum just as I was finishing the book.
Yeah.
So she didn't get to read it. She always said she wanted to read it when it was published. So sadly, we didn't get that. So I hope I've done the complexity of my amazing mum justice, because she was a brilliant woman. She was proud and brave and courageous. And I hope I've done her proud.
What are you hoping that people are going to take from the book then? What are you hoping that people are going to understand? I mean, that's the thing. It's a book about understanding, and rather than going, oh, well, it's, we used to be great and now we're not, to paraphrase Trainspotting.
Absolutely. It's trying to understand where this fear comes from, and really getting a sense of people needing to belong to a national story, and looking at lives with more nuance. I think that's what it is. Not always just judging, just really thinking about things, and yeah. Nuance.
And also, what did you feel like when Melvin Bragg says, a Cumbrian goes, I was, quote unquote, I was immersed in it. It's wonderful. That's royalty, Nicola.
I was so chuffed. Honestly, I thought, if I can just get some Cumbrian royalty, literally, to endorse my book. And he was like, he loved it. I was so chuffed, Giles. I was over the moon.
I can imagine. The book is called These Wild English, a family, a class, a country on fire. It's by the brilliant Nicola Wilde who's speaking today. Nicola, if people want to find you online and say nice things to you, where's the best place to find you? Do you TikTok? Can we find you on the socials?
God, no. I'm not going to TikTok.
Okay, well, do you have other social
Gen
media?
X.
Exactly, same here.
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Insta.
Right.
Wildy973, but only say nice things. Don't come at me with grief.
Yeah, we'll just block them. Just give me that one more time, please. Just give that Insta. So I'm going to be scrubbing it down in a minute.
At Wildy973.
At Wildy973. Listeners, if you go into our own virtual bookstore, you'll see the brilliant front cover. If you click on that, it will be winging its way to you. The book is called These Wild English, a family, a class, a country on fire. It is by the brilliant Nicola Wilding. Nicola, thank you so much for your time today.
Cheers, Giles.